Hey everyone, this is Dynasty Kings podcast. I'm Austin.
And I'm Jared.
And we're talking about early season football. It's hard to believe. I can't remember the exact time period at this point, but we're 7 weeks away from preseason football.
I saw a tweet today that the Steelers kickoff is 56 days, but we don't play on Thursday Night Football, so it's probably like 53 or something.
And that's preseason, right?
No, I think that's regular.
Really?
I don't know. I could be fucking making it up.
Yeah, either way, it's crazy. It's close. It's really close, but it's still very far away. So right now we're talking some loose topics. We're going to get more into particular discussions about like specific dynasty situations and stuff that happens as the season gets closer. But one of the big things that happened today that I think we want to touch on for a little bit is DeAndre Hopkins. Did he actually officially sign with the Titans, or is it just
officially signed?
Okay.
I haven't.
And what's the contract? I don't think it's been announced yet, right?
I haven't seen the contract. I don't know if it's been announced, but I mean, I'm assuming it's nothing. It has to be like 2 years, maybe 1 year.
Right, something along those lines for sure.
Probably around like 12 to 15 mil, I'd say.
Let's see.
Maybe a little more. I don't know.
Deal's worth. This is according to Ian Rappaport's worth $26 million over 2 years.
Okay.
With a little bit more options to earn that through incentives. So yeah, I mean that's basically that's similar to Odell's contract, it seems, just with an extra year tacked onto it. So yeah, I mean that's interesting. Do you think that's going to do much for the Titans in general, and do you think that's going to do a lot for his fantasy value?
So unfortunately, I'm a huge D-Hop fan. I've always been a pretty big D-Hop fan, and oh, okay. I was tweaking out. So I've always been a big D-Hop fan. But unfortunately, I just think that he's cooked. I think it's his time in his career. We always see these receivers hit around 31 and then kind of just fall off a cliff. Yeah. And especially if they go to the Titans, they really fall off a cliff. But I think possibly we could see, have him have a couple good games out there. But I'm just not sold on the quarterback play, whether it's Tannehill, whether it's Malik Willis, whether it's Will Levis. Yeah. I'm not completely sold. I mean, this team is still, I think, going to run through Derrick Henry. I think they're just going to still be a run-first team and just push it with Derrick Henry. It's worked for so long. Mike Vrabel obviously just will keep doing that. So I still think that they're a fringe playoff team. I could see them sneaking into the wild card. I could see them even sneaking into like winning the division, depending on how their games go and their schedule and stuff like that, but I still have Jacksonville winning the division.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think just in general, Jacksonville is a much more stacked team. The Titans do improve a major weakness with this move, so I like it for them personally. A chance to get a superstar. Yeah, I mean, I think they're a French playoff team at best, but in general, and as we're going to talk about a little bit later, the AFC is kind of stacked. Fantasy-wise, I feel like this kind of has him in the same position he was already as just an aging wide receiver asset. Somebody you'd like to get maybe later in the rounds in a redraft league. And then, somebody who, if you're all in a dynasty league, you might be moving forward on. And then as far as Tannehill goes, like, does that add anything to his value to a degree where you'd be making a play for him if you're trying to, absolutely win now? Or is this still the kind of thing where, he's a couple games away from being sat?
Well, you're the big Tannehill guy, so I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Huge Tannehill guy. I've always just really enjoyed his play more so than like his ability. And I think maybe 2 years ago you could possibly say he was underrated, but I think right now he's probably properly rated. And yeah, I mean, I think having a wide receiver to pass to is going to help Tannehill a lot. But in general, he's a low-end low-end QB2. And I think that's kind of just where he stands at now. Having D-Hop is going to help with his consistency, but I still don't see him as being, someone who's going to score above, that QB 18, QB 14 range, even during his best weeks, probably.
Yeah, I'm not particularly sold on him. I'd still have him around like you said, like a low-end QB2. But I mean, there's potential. I mean,
and that helps.
Yeah, I mean, there's no kidding that obviously this helps their passing offense. This helps Ryan Tannehill because I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is in his prime was one of the best receivers in the NFL and is a lock for the Hall of Fame. Yeah. So
had some good games last season too, coming off of the suspension and some injuries as well. So
he's just a target hog too, and I mean you have to double cover him. Like you have to respect him as an athlete, and I mean it's going to be hard to still cover him one-on-one just because he's so lanky and he's so talented. So but no, moving on. We were going to talk about our most excited things that we have for our particular favorite teams, which for me it's the Steelers and for Austin it's the Bills.
Yep.
So I'll go ahead and get you started on the Bills.
All right, bet. Well, yeah, so this is probably going to be an easy one and maybe something that you've heard too often for the Bills, but it's just number one. Obviously, it's Dalton Kincaid. Very excited to see him come in and play. One of the easiest things to identify watching Bills games last year, even before the playoffs where they kind of fell apart on the offensive line, was their issue with passes down the middle. Dawson Knox has always kind of been a big play tight end and a good red zone threat, but he can't eat up the middle the same way that Kincaid can. And the Bills were relying on Isaiah McKenzie last year, who's an explosive playmaker, but he just didn't have the hands, and he can't really make those contested catches. And when you're looking at Kincaid's body of work, that's basically all he does is just catch passes that are near him, does a lot of work in the middle. So I'm really excited to see, how that's going to help open up our offense, maybe running two tight ends more often than not.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a huge change for the Bills. I agree that they might run a lot of two tight end sets, which we haven't seen from them, really ever.
At all, right.
So that's exciting. Do you think he is going to play more of the tight end role or the big slot like they're saying, though?
Yeah, probably a lot of big slot, I would think. I know his blocking is not, necessarily a liability, but it's definitely not something that he's known for. So he'll probably continue to work on that as he gets bigger in the NFL and continues to work. But I think as it stands right now, and that is one thing, too, I didn't mention with Knox as well, as he is a great blocker. So having him maybe as the primary tight end role and then maybe using Kincaid as more of that slot receiver, eating up the middle. I think that's definitely kind of what we're going to be seeing from him. And like I said, I'm super excited from it because a lot of times last year you'd see McKenzie open in the middle, what people are covering Diggs and Davis going deep. The middle's wide open and he just can't convert the passes. So I think hopefully that's going to change a lot and keep that Bills offense super explosive.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you for the Steelers?
So for the Steelers, it's actually funny. What I was originally thinking, I didn't know you were going to say Kincaid, but I was actually thinking the tight end position for the Steelers too. Yeah. I think that Pat Freiermuth is going to take another step forward. He's taken a step every year, and he's really proving that right now he's a top 10 tight end, 100%, but I think that he could really take that step forward and solidify himself as a top 5 tight end, especially with Travis Kelce getting older, Darren Waller getting older, George Kittle getting older. But, there's still guys like TJ Hawkinson and Mark Andrews that are still relatively young. So those guys are probably still a lock for the top 5. But I think Freiermuth...
You think he could maybe make a play at a 5 or 6 there?
I think he really will make a play at 5 or 6. I mean, he's top 5 tight end in targets. And, I mean, I just don't see that going away anywhere. I think that he's going to be that security blanket for Kenny Pickett. And, some people might think that Darnell Washington is going to come in and take targets. But, I mean, his nickname is literally the 6th O-lineman. So he's just going to be there for mostly blocking and then probably some red zone action, put him on a fade. And, I mean, who's going to cover him? He's friggin' enormous.
It's huge. Absolutely massive.
So I'm huge on the Steelers tight ends. We also brought back Zach Gentry, who's more of just he's a blocking tight end, but he's also a really good locker room guy. Him and Pat Freiermuth get along really well, and he gets along with the team, and he really brings the vibe up in there. So I'm really excited for our tight end room. And then, of course, Connor Hayward as well, who's Cam Hayward's younger brother, kind of playing that. He gets a little bit of play time, but, I mean, when he does, I mean, he's electric. He made a huge play up the field late last season that I'll never forget. He was just absolutely balling. He mostly be used as fullback or just... honestly, he might even be in that Kincaid type of role where he's kind of just a big slot sometimes. Yeah. Because the Steelers kind of have...
Going on short routes.
Well, we kind of just have a hole at slot. Right now Calvin Austin's coming back, and he might fill that position, hopefully. And then we brought in Allen Robinson to possibly play big slot as well. But I think Allen Robinson's mostly just going to be a mentor type of player. I don't think he's going to be anything serious.
Yeah, I don't see him having a particularly large season, but I do like taking a flyer on someone like that who, you've seen the talent before, but he's kind of just had some weird things going on in the last couple of years. But yeah, to get back to the Freiermuth point, haven't watched a ton of the Steelers games since Pickett started playing, other than the few that were on prime time. Did you notice a lot of chemistry between him and Freiermuth? Because Freiermuth did have a little bit of an injury at some point last season as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they have a lot of chemistry. I see more chemistry with George Pickens, to be honest, and I think that he's going to be electric this season as well. I think he's going to take a really big step forward, and Pat Pete even said that he sees a lot of DeAndre Hopkins in George Pickens' game, which I'm super excited for.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
So, but yeah, moving on from the Steelers, what's one thing that you're really excited for the rest of the AFC, not really including the Steelers or the Bills?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to that will have a good idea of what's going on, but won't really have this answer for quite some time. Who is going to be in the wild card for the AFC? So this is obviously a projection, but I feel like these 6 or 7 teams are basically a lot. These 6, I think, in my opinion, are basically a lot to have records that are going to put them either winning their division or going to the wild card. The Bills, the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Jags, the Dolphins, and the Chargers. Those 6, I'm pretty sure, are going to make it. So, that can get switched a little bit. Some injury luck with the Dolphins. We've seen that last year where they could, barely made the playoffs. If that continues, that's something that could affect them. Same with the Chargers. I mean, they're a Justin Herbert injury away from, not even being close to this. But let's just say for the exercise sake, those 6 teams are locked. Who is the 7th and who is the 8th? Because the Ravens are contenders. The Jets are contenders. The Steelers are contenders. The Browns, honestly, if Deshaun Watson can return to form, are pretty good, in my opinion. Anybody in the AFC South, I'm not really super sold on. The Patriots, as much as I hate to admit, I think people are sleeping on a lot. So, this division is obviously stacked to the brim, but those, top, 10, 11 teams that are going to make it, is there anybody on that list you are pretty confident is not even going to be close in wild card contention, or...
So I have 2 teams that I think won't even be close, and I'll start with the Patriots because
not believing them.
I'm not a believer. I saw the other day that Coach Belichick is on the hot seat. I don't really believe that. I mean, maybe because they might be like, oh well, Tom Brady carried you your whole career, but I don't really think he's on the hot seat. I think that they would still stick with Bill Belichick.
I think they'd give him at least one more season.
Yeah, I mean that's just ridiculous to say that he's on the hot seat. But I don't think that they're going to make playoffs. So if that's what they meant by that report, then I do agree. I don't think that they're good enough to compete in the AFC, especially after missing out on the Hopkins sweepstakes. I think if they got Hopkins, it would be a different story because he'd be used pretty well in that offense. But I kind of don't. I'm pretty sleep on them. I don't even think they'll have a winning record. And then the other team I'm pretty sleep on is the Browns as well because I am just not sold on Deshaun Watson. I don't care what he did on the Texans. That was years ago.
Right. And
I just think that the Browns are legitimately cursed. I think that Nick Chubb will have a good year, but I mean, he has a good year every year, and they're still terrible. So I'm just not sold on them. Their defense doesn't really impress me.
It scares me. That's what I was going to say.
Exactly.
That's definitely concerning. But if he gets his magic back, I feel like Deshaun is definitely capable of taking them, maybe into wildcard contention there. But yeah, I think their defense is a major liability, and they are definitely cursed. And the decisions that they've been making, I don't think are helping with that very much either.
Yeah, no.
So, all right, even then, so if that's the case, we got the Ravens, the Jets, the Steelers.
You already know what I'm going to say. So
yeah, you think the Steelers are taking that 7th spot?
They have to, bro. I mean, they've only gotten better. They were the 8th team in the AFC last year, and they've only gotten better. They improved the offensive line with Broderick Jones. They improved the offensive line with Darnell Washington.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they just got better at all their weaknesses. And TJ Watt's healthy. And when TJ Watt's healthy, the Steelers win.
Right. So, let's say for this exercise sake, the Ravens don't have any injuries to their wide receivers. Are they not going to be a problem for y'all at that point?
No.
And you don't think so?
Lamar does not play well against the Steelers. He never has.
That's fair. That's fair.
As long as TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith and Cam Hayward are healthy, he just won't be able to do anything against our defense. That's just what I think. Yeah. It might be a little biased. There might be a little bias in there. We'll see. But I was right last year.
Yeah.
I was right last year.
Exactly what happened.
So, we'll see.
That makes sense. So, Jared says Steelers. If I had to make a final guess.
The thing I will say, too, is that the Jets are spicy, man.
The Jets are crazy spicy.
If Breece Hall can come back and he's looking really good, which I kind of don't think he will be because
that's what I'm concerned about.
I think it all comes down to Breece Hall, and they don't really have. I mean, if Israel Abanikanda, how do you say it? Abanikanda?
I can't remember.
Anaconda. If the Anaconda's running loose, then they have a shot. But I'm not sold on Michael Carter or Zonovan Knight.
No.
But I think it really comes down to that, and I'm not really. I don't know. I mean, we have to see if Aaron Rodgers is cooked or not. If Aaron Rodgers is MVP Aaron Rodgers and he's throwing for over 3,500 yards, then I could easily see them making the wild card.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I definitely think. As far as the division goes, it's probably Bills, Dolphins there. Chiefs, Chargers easily in the West. Bengals or Steelers or Bengals and Ravens in the North. And then the Jags are solo up there. As much as I love the Colts and would love to believe in them, I don't think Anthony Richardson is a playoff quarterback this year, even if he does end up kind of overperforming.
That actually segments into the thing I want to talk about the AFC.
Okay.
Is I really want to see the battles between C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson.
Oh, yeah.
Interdivision rookie quarterbacks.
And Levis, possibly.
And Levis, but I don't think...
That one's not for sure.
Yeah, that one's not for sure. And if he does play this season, I think it'll be mid to late season, so he won't really have a great season. Where, Anthony Richardson and C.J. Stroud could start day one. They're saying Minshew might start day one, but, I mean, at the end of the day, Richardson's going to start by, week 6 at the latest?
Probably, yeah.
So, I still think he starts week 1, but...
and when is that matchup? Do you know what week it is?
No, I don't know their matchups, but I'm super excited because, I mean, those two guys, besides Bryce Young, obviously, are two of the top 3 guys for this draft class. And personally, for me, I think they're the best two out of this draft class. I'm not super sold on Bryce Young. Maybe I'm wrong. I just don't think that the Panthers will really take care of him because they sold their first next year and they don't have many great weapons. So we'll see how Bryce Young does. But back to the AFC, I think that C.J. Stroud is going to... I'm not super sold on him either just because they don't have great weapons. I think Robert Woods is going to be his best receiver this year. Oof. And that's not saying much. And
they do have Mingo and...
No, I'm talking about the Texans.
Right. Oh, wait, no, it's not Mingo. What is the guy's name?
Tank Dell.
No, yeah, that rookie that they grabbed too. But no, the guy who's been...
Nico Collins.
Nico Collins.
I think Nico Collins is just big for no reason. I think that he's just not going to be that great. I mean, he'll be good for contested catches and, what he's known for, really. But I don't think that he's going to be 1,000-yard receiver or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't think that either. So it's going to be rough probably.
But I don't see either of these teams making the playoffs. But I think that both of these teams should have a lot to get excited for the future.
Yeah. No, I think so too. And this will definitely be... I hope that they're exciting games first off. That would be sweet because it does seem kind of like the Colts are definitely a little further along as far as talent goes, but they're still definitely both kind of building something at the moment. And so, yeah, if they can have some spicy duels, I think that'd be super sweet. And I think that they're both playing the Panthers as well, right? I know for a fact the Texans and Panthers are starting. They have a primetime game against each other, which is going to be sick.
Yeah.
But I don't remember if the Colts are playing them as well. I hope they do. But yeah, that's going to be sweet. And that was going to be one of the ones that I said too with the AFC in general is just the rookie quarterbacks, because they're all in the AFC South except for Trevor Lawrence is now the oldest QB in the AFC South, which is pretty insane. Besides Tannehill, obviously, but who knows how long that can last? Even me, a pretty big Tannehill guy. I think he's probably by week 4 or 5, 2.5 bad games away from sitting down. So we'll see for sure. But yeah, I like that one a lot. And then here, let's see, what would I have about the NFC?
So I'll talk about the NFC first. What I'm really excited to see about the NFC is I think that the NFC North is about to completely flip. Over this past decade, we've seen the Packers just absolutely dominate that division, and I think that they're going to be sitting at the bottom. I think that, and then the Vikings, I still think that they'll be willing to compete, but I think that the Lions, who have perennially been terrible, I think that they are my pick to win that division.
They're your favorite to win the division?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think that they still have some holes on the defense, but they took care of a lot of them in the draft by taking Jack Campbell pretty early.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people think is a reach. A lot of people think is a reach, but they also got Brian Branch pretty late too, so if they just swap those picks, it's not really a reach. So
that is kind of fair.
But we'll see. So those are two big holes that they covered up. We'll see how they play, obviously. Like, if they're bust, they're bust.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the Jahmyr Gibbs pick, I think that was also a reach, but I think he's going to be super electric.
They got an explosive player, right?
Yeah, they got a running back that could run 4.3. They brought in David Montgomery for the short yardage work, and I think that their offense is just going to take off this year with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jamison Williams missing the first 6 games. I don't think it's really going to hurt them that much because they still have some X-Factor players like, what's his name? Help me out here.
It's not Josh Reynolds, is it?
It is Josh Reynolds.
No.
Josh Reynolds.
I don't know about that. Yeah.
Listen. He's not going to get 10 targets a game,
Right.
but he still eats a little bit. Josh Reynolds, and then they have another
he's
receiver
okay.
too that I'm thinking about, that Khalif Raymond or something like that.
Khalif Raymond. I thought he was a Titan. Is he no longer a Titan?
I don't think.
Maybe
I think he was.
Either way, yeah. I feel
they're
like,
not great.
No, they're
but they
pretty
brought
bad.
back Marvin Jones. They brought back Marvin Jones.
Yeah,
Come on, man.
That's their weakest position though by far is the.
Yeah.
But I also feel like their offense is built around the run, especially with how deep they went in on Gibbs, like you just said. So and they have a really good offensive line. So
Exactly.
the fact that they can kind of maybe take over games, really dominate with play action, that'll help mitigate the fact that they are missing those guys. And Jamison Williams didn't play a ton last year, but he did go on the field and score a touchdown immediately, right? Like,
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure his first NFL play was a touchdown. So
Jamison Williams has 2 touches in the NFL, and both were over 40 yards.
Yeah.
So he's an
He's
explosive
electric.
player.
He's electric for sure.
So when he comes back, that offense is going to really be
Right.
like insane.
Mm-hmm.
But for the first 6 weeks, Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to carry that offense on his back.
Yeah.
Plus, with the addition of Sam Laporta, who might be the best tight end of his class.
I have heard good things about him as well, but I've also heard good things about tight ends in camp a lot.
He's a rookie
lot.
tight end. He's not
Right.
going to do anything crazy, but
Exactly.
I do think that he's super talented.
It's
and
going to help,
definitely-
and it's a position that they needed as well.
Yeah, he's better
with-
than Brock Wright.
Yeah. What? I can almost guarantee that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Day
100%.
one. He's already better than him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that division's going to completely flip. I think the
That's
Packers...
gonna be interesting. What about the Bears? Where do you think the Bears are going to end up at?
I think the Bears... It's going to really be the Bears and the Vikings fighting for that 2 spot in that division.
Yeah.
But I ultimately probably would take the Vikings just because they're more stacked at more positions.
So too. Yeah.
And I think the Bears are probably another year out before they can really... are at that competing level.
Right. And they have another year of elevated draft picks as well, right? If I remember correctly, a couple extra seconds and stuff like that.
Well, right, because they traded back from the first. They traded back from the first overall pick.
Dang, that's right. They have a first from the Panthers again this year too, don't
Right.
they?
Yep.
Sheesh.
So they traded back from the 1st to the 9th, and then they traded back again in the draft. They traded back to get Anton Harrison,
Right.
which I still think was a reach. I don't think he was the best offensive tackle on the board there, especially because Broderick Jones was still there. But
I'll take that all day long.
yeah, I'll take that. Hey.
Yeah, I don't know what they were doing with that, but hey, they got a ton of capital. They've definitely improved this year. I think those Vikings-Lions matchups are going to be really exciting to watch. Those ones are going to be sick because I think they're both kind of run first. Actually, no, I think the Vikings are actually going to quit being so run first. That's what I was actually just about to say. I'm just curious to see what the switch from Madison full-time is going to look like based off of, how well the Vikings are going to be able to pass the ball now with Jordan Addison at number 3. They really have a deadly group of wide receivers.
Yeah, I think that people perennially sleep on KJ Osborne.
Exactly.
And TJ Hawkinson is there, who I think he's their real number 2 target, and I think
That'd be facts.
Yeah, he's one of the biggest breakouts that I think is going to happen. He was breaking out last year when he was on the Vikings, and I just don't see that slowing down.
He's going to get fed for sure. And I think Addison is a smooth route runner. He's going to help a lot with the balance of their offense. And, the NFC North's going to be exciting for sure. Because like you said, it really kind of always has been like, oh, let's pencil in the Packers for this one. And then last year, Aaron Rodgers started making them slip. The Vikings got a lot of one-score victories where, in the end, they probably should have ended up being 10-7 rather than I think they ended up with 13 wins or something like that.
Yeah.
So we can probably expect them to be right around there, around 9 or 10 wins. And then it's going to be curious to see if the Lions are going to be able to catch up or if they're going to have to, try to get a wild card spot.
I don't think there's going to be any catch-up. I think they're going to be good right out the gate, even without Jamison Williams there.
Wow.
That's just my prediction.
What's your prediction for their record? Do you have one?
For the Lions, I would have to really look at the schedule, but off the top of my head, I think that they're a 12-win team.
12-win team.
I really do.
Wow.
I think that Dan Campbell
Wow.
is. He's still there. He's bringing the energy. His players want to play for him.
That's facts.
Jared Goff is basically in a contract year. He has
another one, I believe. But...
yeah, so there's this year and then there's another year next year, but it's basically they could cut him for pretty little,
right?
Like kickback. Yeah. So he's basically playing for a new contract this year. I think that if he does play well, then he's probably going to demand a new contract, and I think he'll get it. I mean, I think that like I said, I think the Lions win the division.
Yeah, that's spicy. I personally have the Vikings winning this one, but I do believe that that's going to be a very, very close matchup, and that does kind of segue into my thing about the NFC that I have been very curious about, which is I feel like the Eagles and the Niners are pretty definitively 1 and 2 if they continue to stay healthy. They just have a lot of talent, a lot of ridiculous talent on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, and they've both kind of improved as well on that sides. So who's the third best team in the NFC? It's hard to imagine. I have the Seahawks, Cowboys, Vikings, Giants, and Lions on my short list. Am I missing anybody from that one, you think?
No, I think my answer would be the Seahawks. I'm a really big fan of the Seahawks.
I'm big on the Seahawks, too.
Yeah, we're both there.
Time, baby.
We're both huge Geno fans. So,
and I think he played well enough, consistently enough last season for me to expect that from him, and the offense have only gotten better, so...
Yeah, I mean, when you add the best receiver in the class, arguably, but in my opinion, Jackson Smith and Jigba, I mean, your offense isn't going to get worse.
No.
So, and then you add Zach Charbonnet in, the late second? Yeah. So, I don't know about that
pick. With Ken Walker coming off of a great season as well, you're just adding on to your strengths.
Yeah, it's going to be huge thunder and lightning between them. They're just going to bring a 1-2 punch that the NFL, I don't know if they're ready for. So, I think that... they could sneakily win the division, but because I mean we don't know who the 49ers starting quarterback is.
Yep, exactly. If it's Sam Darnold, the Niners, then like I said, I'm assuming that the Niners are starting either Trey Lance and he's looking okay, or Brock Purdy and he's healthy. If that's not the case, I think it's very easily Eagles number 1, and we can have this debate about who's number 2 or number 3. But yeah, Seahawks is kind of the one that comes to mind immediately for me just because of the JSN edition as well. I mean, that could be huge. That could be absolutely huge. Because I mean, their duo of wide receivers, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, there's not a lot better in the NFL in general. So adding a possibly explosive possible number 1 receiver if he went to another team, to that corral of receivers, I think is going to be really strong. But the other one that I could easily see being number 3 are the Cowboys. Really powerful defense. We talk about, high-powered players, a lot of players with talent. Their defense is stacked. Their offense is stacked. And the Cowboys added Stephon Gilmore as well as Brandon Cooks to the passing game for both of those. So, could you see them also being in 3, or do you think the Cowboys are lesser than that, or is it close for you?
So I don't see them really being 3. I could see them winning, or not winning the division because the Eagles will win the division, but I could see them easily being a 10-plus win team.
Yeah.
For sure. I think Dak is pretty slept on. I think losing Kellen Moore is pretty bad, though.
Right.
Because him being on the Chargers, I think, is going to hurt their passing game. But I think that Tony Pollard if he can take that step this year, then he could be one of the best running backs. He could be the RB1 of this year. Yeah. Which I think is super slept on, and I don't think anyone's really talking about. But
very easily. Because I think they're going to feed him heavy.
Yeah.
And it depends on his recovery, because, he did break his leg, but apparently it was as clean as it could be, and that's not going to be something that's really bringing him down.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about it. I think that he has no real competition for carries as of right now. Of course, they could still re-sign Zeke or Fournette or Kareem Hunt or anybody or Dalvin Cook. But for right now, he's, there's no competition behind him. Yep. And I think that they're going to lean more on the run this year. Even though they added Brandon Cooks and Michael Gallup is finally healthy, which, is super good for the team in general, but also for Dak. So, yeah, I think you make a pretty good point that the Cowboys could easily be the third best team in the NFC if the cards lay out correctly.
Right. All right. And then we kind of already talked about the Vikings and the Lions, but in general, when we're talking about ranking it here, do you think the Lions are good enough to possibly be, in this conversation of ready to win a Super Bowl, ready to go to a Super Bowl?
That's spicy.
Because that's a real question.
I think that, the problem with the Lions, I'm sorry. The problem with the Lions is just their defense, and it was a huge problem last year. Is I don't know if they finished, but I know at one point they were the number 1 scoring offense and the 32nd scoring defense.
I'm pretty sure that's how it finished, yeah.
That is how it finished?
I believe so.
Then, yeah, I mean, you just can't win the Super Bowl when you have the worst defense in the NFL.
Right.
Like, you can't even compete in the playoffs with the worst defense in the NFL. So, especially against offenses like the Eagles or the Niners or even the Cowboys, Vikings, like all the Seahawks, all these teams we're talking about.
Right.
Those teams are going to kill the Lions on defense.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't think they're necessarily ready for the Super Bowl right now, even though Jared Goff has made it to the Super Bowl. He has a Super Bowl appearance, but I don't think they're quite ready yet. I think that they are a lose in the first or second round type team.
Yeah,
this
but
year.
making the playoffs, I think at this point is a win for the Lions.
Huge step.
And I think that getting that experience for these young players and for the coach would be a huge step for sure. So and I kind of agree. I would not have them in that number 3, number 4 conversation, even if they do end up winning the division. I think that they could be spicy and maybe a team that makes it to the NFC Championship. But even then, I wouldn't see. If we're in the top 4 of the NFC, I'm picking the Lions to lose in that one. One team that we haven't really spoken about that I did mention too in this list is the Giants. I personally think they're in for a little bit of regression. I know that the NFC East has a harder schedule this season. I could definitely see them sneaking in into the NFC, maybe in the 6 or 7 spot again. But I don't think they're a threat to win their division, and I don't think that they're a threat to win the Super Bowl this year either.
Yeah, I agree. I think that their defense is really good. Dexter Lawrence is a top 3 defensive tackle in the NFL. And they have Xavier McKinney. They have Adoree Jackson still. They have a lot of good players, and especially their D-line. I mean, they have Azeez Ojulari still. They have Kayvon Thibodeau. They still have Leonard Williams. So their D-line is just one of the best in the NFL that nobody ever really talks about. But their offense is just, it scares me still. And
Daniel Jones is still a wild card in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because he had a really good stretch for 5 to 6 games, including in the playoffs. But, I mean, he played against a real team and he kind of got exposed. So
we have to see. I'm not huge on the Darren Waller signing. A lot of people love Darren Waller. I listen.
He's a little too unreliable for me.
He's super unreliable. He's been injury prone the past 2 seasons. He can't stay on the field, and I don't know. I don't think that he's this top 5 tight end like everyone says that he is. That's in the past, and I think that his glory days are really behind him. And yes, he could finish as the number 1 target on the Giants roster, but over who? Paris Campbell, Jalen Hyatt, Darius Slayton, they just
Isaiah Hodgins, bro.
Isaiah Hodgins too. Hey,
he's kind of raw. He's kind of gas.
I do like Isaiah Hodgins.
Old Bills practice squad member Hodgins.
Is he really?
Yes, bro. Dable plucked him.
Okay, so that's why he's there. Okay.
Yeah.
I like Isaiah Hodgins, but
but still, right,
I said earlier,
these are guys that could become great. They're not guys that are great.
Yeah.
And Waller is definitely on the other side of the top 3 tight end performances. I think he's easily in the top 5 right now until we see otherwise or see somebody with a higher potential than him. But I feel like it's just not where it needs to be right now for him.
It all just comes down to Saquon ultimately.
Yes.
I mean, if he's there, the offense is good enough to make the playoffs. If he's not there, the offense is just
right. And the defense is
abysmal.
legit, as you were talking about as well. The defense is absolutely legit, but the offense is a wild card. And at this point in the NFL, you can't be a top 3 team in either division based off of just defense. And I don't think their defense is to that level anyway. So I definitely wanted to throw them in the list because I think they're one of the top NFC teams in general, but not Super Bowl threat era. And I think that kind of shows you the difference between the AFC and the NFC, where the people who we have possibly missing the playoffs, the Ravens, the Steelers, or the Jets, I feel like all 3 of those could make them to the AFC Championship easily.
You mean the NFC Championship?
If they were in the NFC especially, right. But even just in the AFC,
really?
You don't think so?
I mean, listen.
Steelers maybe not making it to the AFC.
That's what I was going to say. Listen, I'm a Steelers fan.
Ravens or Jets, I could see that happening.
I don't think
if either of them get hot.
The Ravens cannot make the AFC
Championship. The Ravens' injuries are the biggest issue because I would probably bet money that they don't start week 17. They're not starting at least one of their 3 starting receivers that they have starting week 1, at least, but probably 2 of them.
Probably.
And so I can't trust a team like that to get there, but if somehow they cobble together a bunch of wins, 3 or 4 of those guys take the last 4 weeks off and they come into the wild card with a fully healthy team, they're explosive. On paper, that team is explosive.
I disagree. I don't think Lamar has that dog in him, and I've
Yeah.
said it before, and I'll keep saying it. He just keeps proving to me that he does not have that dog in him. That MVP season is the best we'll ever see Lamar. I hope that all the Ravens fans enjoyed that season because that's the best they'll ever see him. So, enjoy that contract, Lamar, and I'm out. So
there you go. All right. Well, that about wraps it up. Those are some things that we're excited for. And as the season gets closer, we'll get into more details about particular redrafting, dynasty drafting, and players and teams in general. But for now, that's just stuff that we're excited for as the season's coming.
Yeah, there we go.
Alrighty. Take it easy, y'all.